Hi everyone, we're going to go through Eduqas A Level Law exam tips and revision today. So just a quick overview of your exams. You've got paper 1, which is the nature of law and the English legal system. This is a written exam and it's an hour and a half. It's worth 25% of your qualification and it's split up into 2 sections. Section A, which is lawmaking and the nature of law, and you'll be given 2 short answer questions and 1 scenario-based question. And section B is the English legal system and the nature of law, and you'll be given 1 question from a choice of 2 essays. And each of those essays will be broken down into part A and part B, and you will need to answer both of the same question. Paper 2 is substantive law in practice. This is scenario based and it's a written exam for 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's worth 37.5% of your qualification, and you will choose between section B, C, and D. You will do each of those sections, and in each of those sections, you will choose 1 essay out of the 2 you're given. Sorry, 1 scenario out of the 2 you're given. So in essence, you'll choose 3 out of 6. Section A is contract law. We do not study contract law. We do human rights instead. So you are going to go straight to section B and make your choice there. And that's the same for paper 3, which is perspectives of substantive law, which is 2 hours and 15 minutes again, and it's 37.5% of the qualification. And these are essay-based, and again, you'll choose B, C, and D. You will choose 1 essay from each section, so you'll choose 3 out of 6. Your assessment objectives are prescribed by Ofqual, and these are split into AO1, AO2, and AO3. So for AO1, you will demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the English legal system and legal rules and principles. AO2, you will apply legal rules and principles to given scenarios in order to present a legal argument using appropriate legal terminology. And AO3, you will analyse, evaluate legal rules, principles, concepts, and issues. Paper 1 will examine all 3 of these assessment objectives, and paper 2 will only examine AO1 and AO2, and paper 3 will only examine AO1 and AO3. So if we break down paper 1 a little bit further, again, it's an hour and a half, it's 25% of your qualification. In section A, you will be examined on lawmaking and the nature of law. You must answer 3 questions. You'll answer both question 1 and question 2, which are the short, usually 5 markers, plus either question 3 or question 4. Question 2 may be a 10 marker as well, and we'll go through some examples of that in class. Question 3 or question 4, they are scenarios based on things we've looked at in the past, so such as delegated legislation or statutory interpretation. You'll be given fictitious laws and you have to, advise the people that you're asked to advise. So question 1 and question 2 require you to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the English legal system, as well as legal rules and principles. Credit will be given for the use of relevant supporting case law or authority in your answers. Okay, so example, explain the literal and golden rule of statutory interpretation. Question 2, what is meant by the rule of law? And question 3 or question 4, you've got a scenario. So you get given the scenario, which is on a fictitious case, and then you're given a scenario. So in 2016, this happened using your knowledge of judicial precedent. So it's given to you in the question, the actual topic you're going to be examined on. Advise the Court of Appeal as to the possible outcome for 15 marks. Or section 4, you're given a fictitious law. You read through it and you will be given a scenario, and using your knowledge of statutory interpretation, advise on the possible outcome of the case. And then section B, you must answer either question 5 or question 6. And they are split into A and B, and you must answer both A and B of your question. Part A will ask you to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the English legal system and legal rules and principles. Part B will require you to analyse and evaluate legal rules, principles, concepts and issues, and the nature of law. And credit again will be given for the use of supporting case law and authority in these sections. So question 5, explain the eligibility criteria required to become a judge, that's 10 marks. And section B, analyse and evaluate the independence of the judiciary, 15 marks. Question 6 is explain the role of the jury in trials in England and Wales, 10 marks, and analyse and evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of trial by jury, 15 marks. Okay, these are just some example questions, but part A will always be 10 marks, part B will always be 15 marks, and in section A, they will both be 5-mark questions. Okay, paper 2, this is the scenario-based question, which we've looked at previously, but you're going to answer 3 questions in total. Now, those 3 questions will come from section A, section B, section C, or section D. We do not do contract law, so you do not need to worry about section A. You'll go straight to section B, and you will choose 1 from a choice of 2 in B, 1 from section C, and 1 from section D. And so section B, you'll answer 1 question from each section you've studied in the area of private law. The questions will follow and require you to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the English legal system, apply those legal rules and principles to a scenario, and present a legal argument using appropriate legal terminology. Credit will be given for the use of relevant supporting case law and authority in these questions. So, for example, you'll be either given this scenario, okay, it's a 25-mark scenario, so this is to do with tort. Advise Julie if Sarah could be held liable in tort for her injuries, applying your knowledge and understanding of legal rules and principles. So you've got the scenario, it tells you all the information you need in there. You need to put your knowledge to that. Section B, again, another scenario, which is this one's closely linked to Leach and Smith brain. So you've got that that should be the first thing you're thinking about, okay? Where it says on just this second line down, unfortunately, due to an existing predisposition to cancer, the burn turned cancerous. So that automatically will trigger the Smith and Leach brain case in your brain. So you've got that as a first kind of case point, start viewpoint in the 25-mark scenario. Section C is criminal. And again, only this area is public law, but it's exactly the same as everything that you need to do for tort. You will demonstrate your knowledge and understanding. You'll apply those legal rules and principles. You'll present your legal argument. And again, credit will be given for any supporting case law and authority. So there's your example of one of them. Okay, I'll put this PowerPoint on Google Classroom for you to go through the questions if you want to. We've probably covered already a lot of them in our lessons anyway. But you've got all the bits of information you need to know, and I'm going to go through how to answer these in just a little bit. And there is the other question, so you get to choose between these two. So you will look at them, have a quick glance, and decide which is the one of the two that you wish to do. And section D is human rights. Again, this is an area of public law, which you will demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the legal system. You'll apply legal rules, principles as a scenario, and you'll present a legal argument using appropriate legal terminology. And again, like every other section, you'll be given credit for the use of supporting case law and authority. Okay, and again, you'll read through the question very quickly and decide which you want to do. So this one is to do with police actions, or the next one is to do with any criminal offences, but linking to human rights there. Okay, so the best way to answer these scenario questions is using the ILAC structure. Okay, they can ensure that you've written in a very coherent and logical manner, and it ensures you're using the right application arguments. So the first thing you need to do is identify the key issues, then state the law that governs this issue, apply the law to the facts in the scenario, and then come to a conclusion. So in identifying the issues, you will identify these key issues or problems in the scenario. And it's very useful to use a highlighter on the question or annotate your exam paper. And these key issues are ones that are necessary to answer the question that the problem poses. Okay? There can be some hidden issues beside the obvious point, so make sure you're reading it carefully. Your ability to identify these underlying issues distinguishes an average student over an A-grade student. Identify the appropriate and relevant parts of the law or case law to each of the particular points in the problem. Stick to the scenario in question. Do not consider what if. You've got enough in that scenario to break it down into the component parts. Okay, we do this time and time again. I'll give you a case and we'll all think about, well, what if this? That is great, but in terms of your exam, just stick to the facts you are given. You can't speculate. Okay, go from what you've been given and apply the law and the cases. And it's ideal for you to break down the scenario into each individual problem or person individually. Then you're going to state the law. What is the statutory law? What is the case law that governs this issue? And break it down into component parts. So, for example, in criminal law, if it's a case on property offences, you're going to talk about theft. Well, theft is defined in Section 1 of the Theft Act 1968 as the actus reus of theft is blah, 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 blah. The mens rea is blah, 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 blah. So you're breaking each of those individual areas within that law down, showing your knowledge, and you can apply the cases for each of those individual parts to that L part of this structure. You will then apply the facts in the scenario to the relevant law you've just discussed. Scenarios might not be straightforward. You might need to argue your point, but in real life, cases are won and lost because of the arguments presented in court. Examiners are looking for your arguments that you've made, supported by case law and legislation to support your application. There is no right or wrong answer for this scenario. Okay, if you're saying somebody's guilty and they're not, or you're saying they're not guilty and they are, that's irrelevant because it depends on how well you've made your legal argument in your answer. And so you're going to then finish this off with a conclusion. Okay, so you're going to bring it together. But before you go into conclusion, you're just going to make sure you've applied everything you can fully in the answer. So you're going to make sure that you're looking at the wording of the statute or the wording of judgment. Are there any ambiguous words? What precedent's being said? Could the judge distinguish any of the facts? And what is the difference between the problem that you've been given in the case or what's the same? An A-grade student, again, can be distinguished by their ability to argue the problem in their answer. And then moving to your conclusion, you'll bring it all together. You will give a suggestion as to whether the person is liable. Make sure you're guided by the question, and this conclusion is not definite. Okay, sometimes there'll be no definitive answer. It could always depend on the judge or the jury making that decision. Okay, that happens day in, day out in court. Now, some common mistakes with these scenario questions is people don't answer the whole question, they will answer a part. So make sure you're reading it carefully and answering all of the issues. You need to use case law and or statute law to support your argument. Obviously, we don't have a statutory definition of murder, so if it's about homicide, you're going to be looking to the case law, the common law areas there. You need to make sure you're given definitions for your legal issues. Make sure it's structured and organised. And don't be vague, okay? Use the person's name from the scenario or refer to the specific issues in the question, okay? Make sure you're linking that back to the question as often as you can. So here's an example of a scenario. Adrian and Ben were at home watching a cage fighting martial arts DVD, having spent all morning drinking beer and whiskey. They agreed to a fight in which they would then try and copy the moves they had been watching. Adrian succeeded in securing an arm lock on Ben, who indicated to Adrian that he accepted defeat. However, Adrian continued to apply pressure and Ben's arm was broken. The break was relatively minor, but Ben was left with a permanent restriction in movement when his arm was further damaged by poor treatment at the hospital. Okay, so I've broken that down into offences, defences and causation. So first of all, we've got the issue of consent. Okay, they agreed to this fight, which, given the cases in Aiken, Richardson and Irwin, Okay, it's unlikely that they were to rely on drunkenness to argue that he didn't realise that he withdrew consent. You've got intoxication in that question. Okay, you've got voluntary intoxication, which is different than involuntary. You've then got offences against the person, and you've got causation as well. All of that is within this question. So you can highlight your question. You can make as many annotations as you want. This is just my kind of descriptive annotation. But if you've got this knowledge, this is everything we've done in criminal law. Break it down. Write as much as you can on your exam paper. Obviously, do it very quickly. Don't spend a lot of your time doing it because you're going to eat into your writing time. But that question can give you a lot of information, and you can turn all of that into a 25-mark question that you've then linked to Adrian and Ben. Okay, paper 3 is the perspectives of substantive law. This is the essay paper. Okay, 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it's 37.5% of the qualification. You're going to answer 3 questions. You're going to answer 1 from section B, 1 from section C, and 1 from section D. And again, we do not study section A, so don't worry about them. And you're going to answer these, which require you to demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of the English legal system, analyse and evaluate legal rules, principles, concepts, and issues. And again, credit will be given for the use of supporting case law and authority. So section B is tort. So the Occupiers Liability Act of 1957-1984 are a great improvement, but attention is still needed that the law fits its purpose. Discuss. Or analyse and evaluate the extent to which the defences of consent and contributory negligence are fair and effective. Section C is criminal law, and again, you will be asked to show your knowledge and understanding of the legal system, analyse and evaluate those legal rules and principles and concepts to these issues. Credit will be given for the use of relevant supporting case law and authority. So, to what extent does the law relating to bail place too much emphasis on protecting the public and not enough emphasis on the presumptions of innocence? 25 marks. Okay, we've already gone through this question. You've got a model answer for this. Or question 2 in section C is how far have the court been willing to go to recognise the defence of duress and necessity? And again, this is a question we've done. Section D is human rights, and again, you will demonstrate your knowledge and understanding, and you will analyse and evaluate principles, rules, concepts, and issues. Case law and authorities will be given credit as well. So either, to what extent does the law relating to obscenity amount to an unjustified restriction upon the right to freedom of expression, or the Human Rights Act has proven to be an effective substitute for a Bill of Rights? Discuss. So some of these paper 3 questions will link into a lot of the stuff we did when we were studying paper 1 in how various different aspects work, and you're just building on that knowledge. So you will need to identify, describe, and analyse and evaluate in your questions. Identify what the question is talking about. Describe that area of law in detail, and then analyse and evaluate as the question asks you to do. These are the longest essays at A-level law and require a well-constructed, balanced argument, which is legal in nature. Okay, so it's very law-orientated. This law says this, statute law, case law, Lord Denning, this judge, all these individual people, what are they saying about it? Or even you could look at legal academics such as Zander. There's also going to be a requirement for you to explain what's happened, and there's 10 marks available in this question for you to explain your knowledge. You need to explain the law before you can analyse and evaluate it in relation to the argument required by the question. You should start your answer with a clear introduction which unpacks the question and provides some signposts as to how the main body will progress. You should give a definition of the key words or key terms or concepts in the question, which will focus your answer and keep you on the right track. So in the question we've looked at, and in the question that you've been given in section C, is you're going to start with a definition of bail. The main body should be paragraph with clear links made back to the question throughout. And then at the end, you've got a conclusion which should not introduce any more material but summarise the main arguments, and finish with a clear statement which answers the question posed. Please do not use "I think that." Okay, it's not about your opinion, it's about whether the argument's there. Okay, yes, it's your argument, yes, it's your answer, but do not write in the first person. Okay, I think that. Unless you've got academics or academical authority saying it is said that, okay, if you've got that information, then you can put that in, but there's no kind of, you can't give your point of view. It's how well the argument is weighed on both sides. Okay, so this is marked in AO1 and AO3. You can see you've got 10 marks for your knowledge and understanding. So that's 10 marks for your definitions, okay? Excellent detailed knowledge and understanding. A clear, detailed and fully developed response will get you into that level 4. And then again for AO3, excellent detailed analysis, excellent evaluation, including a valid and sustained judgment, excellent use of support in case law, legal authorities, and your writing demonstrates accurate grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Okay, so please make sure you're doing everything you can, spelling, grammar, because they are all in there in that 12 to 15 marks. And you can see you've got between 1 and 3 marks. If there's lots of errors in grammar, or there's some errors, you're going up to 2. Reasonably accurate is level 3, but excellent and accurate grammar is for a level 4 answer there. Okay, so answering the questions, you should spend around 45 minutes in section A on paper 1, which is roughly around 9 minutes on question 1 and question 2 each. And question 3 or 4 will be around 27 minutes, okay, which examines AO2. Section B, you should spend 45 minutes. Part A, which is the 10 marker, approximately 18 minutes, which is for AO1, and Part B, which is for your 15 marks, 27 minutes for AO3. If you're entitled to extra time, you need to add your percentage on top of this as well, and if you want to come see me, I can add that on for you and give you an overview for you individually. Paper 2, section B, C, and D, you will choose one question, you will ignore section A, and you'll spend 45 minutes per section. These are scenarios. And paper 3, you will choose again B, C, and D, one question from each of these sections. You will ignore section A, and you'll spend 45 minutes per question here. These are your essay-based questions. And just again, AO1 and AO2 and AO3 are in paper 1. Paper 2 is AO1 and AO2, and paper 3 is AO1 and AO3.